Brian Tyler Cohen joins me now. Brian, thank you for joining. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, but the real question, how are you doing? How has everything been in the aftermath of what I presume has been kind of a whirlwind last 48 or 72 hours here?
You know what? That's a really great question, Brian. And I think a fair answer. Would you be surprised if I said I don't know? You
No, I
know?
mean that, look, it's I think anything other than that would have been, would have been difficult to believe. I mean, talk about highs and lows from what happened just a few days ago to obviously, there was a very viral clip of you at the Grammys, and so I'm curious, like what was the reception like for you in a room with all of those people? Look, notwithstanding the fact that there are folks in the entertainment industry, but these are people who fight to push back against the excesses and
Yeah.
abuses of this administration on a daily basis, and
Yeah.
you are literally on the front lines.
Yeah, and you heard that. I mean, look, they were not shy about their criticism of this administration at the Grammys,
Totally.
right? Right, and some major artists. And usually, as of late, we've seen people trying to, move away from politics in this, but they were very open to speaking about it. And usually, when I cover these things, like the Grammys or something like that, I'm not looking to talk to them about politics or foreign policy or anything like that. It's things that have to relate to the industry. Like last year at the Grammys, we talked about the fires and they were raising money for people with the fires. And of course, there were other things that sometimes they bring up. But this year, people were very focused on ICE. So we're wearing, the ICE out buttons and just not really shying away from it. But for me, Brian, what this is freedom. It's the First Amendment. And and artists are, I think, some of the artists and obviously journalists are the true sort of examples of the First Amendment at its finest and what it's
Yeah.
supposed to be, right? And I believe artists and journalists, if journalists, especially corporate journalists, sort of do some self-correction, they could actually save our democracy in this moment. And so that's why I wanted to talk to. I'm glad you brought that up, but it was a little odd. First of all, being the story, right? I don't like being the story, but if I'm going
Yeah.
to have to be the story, then I want to conduct myself properly, and I want to make sure that I stand up for what is right. But that's why I wanted to talk to you, because you're an example of journalism, of the freedom of the press, especially now that we're in this independent space, and we are close to the ground. We don't have the corporate filters, and I think it's important that we bring people the information without fear or favor and without it being filtered through gatekeepers.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and of course, I have friends and family, as I'm sure you do, who constantly bring up this idea of like, are you worried? What about the administration going after you? And I think like we've all been asked that question, especially by our loved ones. But I think the alternative to not speaking up and not, leaning 10 toes in is okay, you kind of take a back seat, allow this administration to censor you and silence you. And of course, they're doing it without much pushback as far as legacy media is concerned. And they're doing it without pushback with tech CEOs and universities and law firms and other world leaders. And so if he has kind of a glide path to just full censorship, think about what's on the other side of that. I
Mhm.
mean, that is what true like autocracy looks like. And so we're a bulwark here. Not saying anything is even worse, because then we end up in an administration or a regime really where Trump has achieved what he wants because he's successfully quashed any dissent, and that doesn't leave us any more safe. And so while this might be a dangerous and difficult position, and you can speak to that more than anybody at this point, the alternative is so much worse. And so there is an obligation and a duty to continue doing this work, no matter what like the dangers are. And again, you can attest to that better than anybody.
Yeah, but listen, I don't want to be selfish about this, because I know that you have a much broader answer, which you kind of touched on in what you were just saying. But when you heard about what happened to me and to the other journalists, what did you think, Brian?
Look, the sad part is I wasn't surprised. It kind of feels like a matter of time the fact that Trump is going down this list. I mean, he started with Letitia James and James Comey, and Adam Schiff is on there, and then he moves over to like Tim Walz and Jacob Fry, and he's arrested judges, and we've seen Padilla get arrested, and so it's you know
Not to mention
what I want
suing.
to
Don't forget suing journalists and suing news
suing
organizations.
journalists,
Yeah,
suing the New York Times, suing, I mean, anybody, who CBS and Paramount
ABC. Yeah.
and ABC for $16 million. And I think he has been successful in normalizing us to this idea that this is just what happens in the United States. And that's the part I want to push back against, because like we cannot become accustomed to this idea where the president of the United States just sues people or silences people or wields his FCC against comedians for the crime of telling jokes. And I think that what kind of heartened me to see was like all of the pushback left, right, and center against what had happened to you, and that needs to happen every single time. Like that cannot diminish just because we've seen this before. Was that something that surprised you? To see all of the pushback, even in a world where everybody kind of expects Trump to go after his enemies.
Well, I got it. Yes, the very simple answer, straightforward answer to your question is yes. And can you imagine though? We're so connected to our devices, right? Especially in what we do. We're there, and we're like, oh, well, we got to report it. This is what we do. We have some breaking news, or this just happened. And imagine not having any communications for 12 hours, right? And so
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on in the world, none, until I walked out. And when I saw the scrum of cameras and news people there, I was floored. I was like, really? Are you kidding me? I had no idea. And I was very pleasantly surprised. I mean, there were helicopters following me like I was OJ Simpson on the interstate. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But I had no idea until I got to my friend's house where I'm staying. And I looked at the news coverage and I said, holy shit.
It was the biggest story probably in the world.
Yeah.
But I
At
mean,
that
like,
point.
how bizarre that even while you're in there, you have no idea, and you could have very well walked out to one or two people, and God knows how many other things could have happened that day that just might have taken all the attention,
Yeah.
sucked up all the oxygen.
Yeah. But I wondered, Brian, and you can answer this better than I can. I think I'm too close to it. Is this the thing that gets people to say, especially journalism and the media? And I'm not talking about the corporate bosses because they still want to make their money and they still want their
Yep.
mergers and acquisitions. But for the journalists to say, okay, enough already. I can't do this. I can't have the false equivalence. I can't do it. And just before you answer, I say maybe it is because people who I didn't have such great relationships with, and for whatever reasons, I don't know why, professional jealousy or competition or whatever, reached out and said, I know we haven't been friendly lately, but I just want to tell you this is fucked up. And I'm sorry this happened to you. And I'd love to like sit down and have a drink with you soon. So is this a thing? Maybe I would love if that would happen. That just gets journalists to say, fuck no, we're not doing this anymore.
Look, I hope so, and I think for two reasons. One, this isn't about whether somebody agrees with you or your coverage. This is about the precedent that it establishes moving forward. And I think Republicans are starting to realize that if Trump establishes precedents that could turn around and bite them in the ass as we move forward, I mean, like there I think that that's a very pronounced worry for them. Like this idea of okay, so everybody here in the right wing media ecosystem is going to just sit idly by and be silent as this happens. What can happen when we have a Democratic president in office? And I think that's been a worry for them as they see things get like the abuses grow more and more. On the flip side, look, there are always going to be people for whom Trump can do no wrong, and we've seen some of them too. And the reality is that those people would sacrifice their firstborn if Trump asked them to. And so I think that we're seeing a growing dichotomy between the slavish devotees to Trump, these
Mm-hmm.
people on right wing media who are just going to be his mouthpieces no matter what ICE agents, what crimes they commit or who they shoot or what journalists they arrest. Those people are always going to be on board. But there's a growing disparity between those people and even the people they speak with, like even right wing regular Americans. And I think that they're recognizing, that's that shit's cultish behavior. Like that's not necessarily reflective of me. Maybe in 2024 things felt a little bit different. I could align myself with a more right-wing government, right-wing campaign, but like this is what right-wing governance looks like in action. And if that's what it looks like, where you've got, Caroline Leavitt basically doing her best North Korea lady impression on a daily basis, is like, I don't know. I'm seeing people get more and more uncomfortable with that on a daily basis.
You're very astute, right on, because the people I spoke to, even at the Grammys, said to me, "Hey, look, I'm a Republican. I don't like what happened to you. That's not right. I'm a conservative. I voted for Donald Trump, and I don't necessarily agree with everything that you say, but this is wrong, and I'm in your corner on this one." And I'm seeing that from. I don't hear that a lot coming from conservatives. Now, the MAGA faithful and the crazy people of the world, like God, what's this? Like the Benny Johnsons and the Megyn Kellys or whatever, who just are grifting out there on the right. They're going to keep, fueling the fire and putting gasoline on the fire, because that's how they get clicks and ratings, right? Or, well, I don't know, money. But I think for most sensible people, whether you're a conservative or not, you realize like we need an independent, free press.
Yeah. What was so interesting, I think, about the Grammys was just a year ago. I mean, these people wouldn't be caught dead talking about politics, but certainly not like some aligning themselves with liberal politics. It became so out of vogue to align yourself with the left. I mean, look, I'm a Democrat. Like I would be the it sucks that I have to admit it, but it was toxic. It was cultural suicide to align yourself with the Democrats or some democratic or progressive position just a year ago. And that's what gave birth to all of these manosphere podcasts. And I mean, the Democrats had lost culture, and which was bizarre to say, because I grew up like in the Barack Obama era, and he was cool, and we had George W. Bush, who was decidedly uncool. And I think in one fell swoop, we saw so much of that snap back. And politics is downstream of culture, and you have all of these big names and voices and popular ones. I mean, musicians even have like a more prominent role in society than even actors do, right?
Yeah.
And for all of those people to be so unapologetically outspoken in terms of pushing back against what this administration is doing was a really like heartening thing to see, because again, like I didn't know when culture would swing back to the left, and I think we saw it happen thanks to Trump way faster than anybody anticipated.
We were talking about some of those, the manosphere, and now I'm seeing people like, is it Andrew Schultz? Is that
Andrew Schultz? Oh yeah,
Schultz.
he's just you just know he's like in pain right now.
Well,
and as well, look, go on.
I want you to finish that, but he didn't realize that this was going to happen. I mean, he supported him. He had him on his show, and they were talking, him and Charlemagne. So all of these people and the other folks on, and now they're surprised that Donald Trump is doing what he's doing. Like, really? Like,
surprised that the guy who wielded like mass deportation now signs at his rallies is doing mass deportations. I mean, like there is no world in which you had almost 80 million people who saw this coming, but you have like 6 or 7 assholes who had no fucking clue that any of this could come about. Like the whole, like half the country, a whole half of the country was yelling about this exact thing happening. But now you've got, Andrew Schultz and Joe Rogan, who had no idea this was coming. And you can hear in their voices how they kind of just have their tails between their legs now as this stuff happens, and they have to talk about it because they host shows. And the subtext to everything is like, well, this guy was sitting across the table from me as I was, basically filleting him for my audience.
That's vivid.
How's that for some imagery? How's that for some imagery for you?
Thank you for that, Brian. No, look, I'm surprised. Here's the thing. I keep hitting the table because of my temporary setup here, so sorry if the camera's a little shaky. But that shows you that not everybody with a microphone should be talking about politics, especially if you don't. These people have no idea about politics and policy. Why are they doing it? They're comedians. You can talk. Look, it's obviously freedom of speech. But sometimes things are so important that you have to leave the expert opinion to the experts. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And not everybody's meant to interview a presidential candidate or a president. And if you don't believe that you are, I don't know. Maybe you should realize. Maybe you should have um, some enough self awareness to realize, like, maybe this is beyond. I should leave this to
Right.
the journalist. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I mean, look, there I think these people are learning that there are consequences to their actions, and
Yeah.
sometimes the consequences are small, when you're dealing with podcasts, but then sometimes the consequences have global implications, and I think these people are realizing that
Yeah.
right now. So Don, what's next now?
Well,
Where does this process bring you?
I will answer that. However, I just saw that we have the video when you asked me about knowing or not knowing. I think you can see like this look on my face because this is when I walked out. Andy, you can play it and just play the sound low and I'll talk over it. But this is when I walked out of jail and my husband is kind of leading the way and I'm looking going, what the fuck is going on here? And I kept, and then the cameraman right here, this cameraman, there so many people there. One of them falls down. I try to help him up. Um, and, and then I had to make my way. Do you see Matt Gutman? Um, there's one of the photographers who works for my team. But once I got to that thing and I saw the helicopters, it started really to sort of hit home about how big it was. But I'm just sort of looking around like, look at my face.
Yeah.
I'm like, holy
Yeah.
shit, what is going on here? So what is next for me? I don't really know, Brian, but I will tell you, I don't know. Look, I know what's next for me is that this is serious. These are criminal and federal charges. So I have to take them seriously, but they're not going to steal my joy. I still have to live and they're not going to silence me. I still have to report and do what I do here on my channel and everywhere, public speaking or whatever. I'm still going to do what I do. I have to. It's not just my livelihood. This is my profession. This is a mission for me to be able to tell the truth and to be closer to the people, closer to the ground without the corporate influence. And I have to say, people like you who've been so great, in advising me, just because I was like some big deal cable guy, I told you coming into this, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be a big streamer. People
Yeah.
don't know who I am. What's your advice, Brian? And you gave me some advice and David gave me advice and others. And I really took that to heart. And I think the reason that I've been successful in that is that I did not come in thinking like I was some big shot or I don't judge it. I just do it. And I think that's part of the reason for the success, but also because of the support we have as independent in this independent media space. Do you disagree with that?
No, I think that's spot on, and I think that what we've seen over the last few days is there's a big difference between how independent media operates and legacy media operates, and I think the scarcity mindset that exists in legacy media or corporate media doesn't exist in independent media, and there is a sense that we need to support each other. There is enough to go around,
Right.
and there is a broader mission. I think that all of us are focused on, and that's why we do this.
Yeah.
But look, I just want to say that I'm grateful for your voice. I'm grateful for the fact that you're fighting as hard as you are. I know that I speak on behalf of myself and all of these other folks in independent media, and saying we see what could be a Tuesday for us in what you're dealing with right now. And so any support, any help, any amplification you need, we're all behind you 100%. So just want to thank you for fighting as hard as you are.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brian. It goes the same to you as well, from me to you. So thank you so much, and I'll see you around these independent streets very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Don.
Brian Tyler Cohen, everyone. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss a show. We're live every weekday at 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time with new clips dropping at 2 p. and 8 p. And if you want even more Don Lemon Show content, join the Lemon community. Members get exclusive posts, behind-the-scenes videos, and live chats just for you. So hit the join button or visit our channel page to sign up. Thanks again for all your love and your support, and I'll see you next time.